Good morning, and thank you all for coming. My name is Al Cowan, and I'm here today with my colleague Clint Sayers. We are past presidents of the Eanes ISD Board of Trustees and have joined other Eanes residents as Citizens for Academic Excellence in Eanes, or CAEE, in expressing our support of teachers in opposition to the Eanes ISD $52.5 million bond, which is on the May ballot. CAEE has guided voters in the past to avoid costly and unnecessary bonds. Our goal is to do so again. CAEE supports the preservation of the exemplary education programs for which the Eanes ISD has become known. However, this bond puts those programs at risk by building new, unneeded administrative facilities that will increase the district's operating costs, add to the existing annual budgeted deficit of over $5.4 million this year, increase the district's debt, and ultimately drain money from academic programs in the classroom. It's a risk we don't need to take and can avoid by voting no on these bonds. Our position is based on the following principles. Number one, the bond is based on the 2013 master plan and is fundamentally flawed. It's flawed because the projects in that master plan assumed our district student population was growing. It didn't. In fact, the number of students decreased. Eanes ISD acknowledged the enrollment drop in its November 8, 2014 enrollment report, stating, quote, "For the first time in nearly a decade, enrollment in the Eanes ISD declined." Went on to say that only 486 kindergarten students enrolled, the lowest number in several years. In 2000, the historical peak enrollment at the time, Eanes had 7,443 students. In 2014, Eanes had 7,587 resident students, an increase of 144 students. However, while Eanes added 144 students, the district added 140 employees, almost one employee for each new student, at an additional cost estimated today of over $5 million, over 80% of which, or $4 million, is outside the classroom. In short, Eanes ISD bureaucracy and budget are growing, but the student population is not. Number two, the bond increases the deficit and puts our academic programs at risk. The proposed bond is substantially the same in concept as voters rejected a year ago. While smaller in amount, the bond repeats the pattern of seeking millions of dollars to spend on expanding buildings in the district and other luxuries. Approximately 25% of the bond is allocated to constructing new buildings, thereby increasing operating costs and the annual operating deficit. The increase in spending that will result from this bond is not the way to accomplish deficit reduction, and growing the deficit will only make cutbacks in our academic programs more painful. We believe that our teachers are the key to preserving academic excellence. That's why we firmly believe that cuts should be made first to spending outside of the classroom. Number three, Eanes is accelerating its debt spending. And Eanes ISD is attempting to fool voters with the theme of no tax increase, but Eanes taxpayers are reeling from tax increases. Even though the tax rate has remained constant since 2011, rising property values have caused tax increases of almost 40% in the last 4 years for debt service taxes to repay bonds. And EISD projects additional increases this year and in years to come. By way of example, on the debt, in 2006, we passed a bond for 5 years of $53 million, which was an annual average spend of $10.5 million. 5 years later, in 2011, a 4-year bond for $54 million, which was an average of $13.5 million per year. This is a $3 million bond proposed in 2015 for $52.5 million, an average of $17.5 million, or an increase of 67% from that bond in 2006. With regard to the deficit, 2 years ago in 2013, Eanes spent $1.8 million more than it brought in. Last year, that amount almost doubled to $3.5 million. This year, the projected deficit is $5.4 million, or triple what it was only 2 years ago. We believe that voters in Eanes ISD are smart and know that more debt and larger deficits are not good for our kids or taxpayers. The increased debt and deficit will lead to even higher taxes, deeper cuts to academic programs, and larger class sizes. We believe that Eanes should trim the fat in the administrative bureaucracy before cutting in the classroom. Finally, any bond should be developed in conjunction with deficit reduction aimed at preserving our academic programs. Many of the items in the bond require further verification to confirm necessity and amounts. The bond also includes luxuries, such as a $250,000 upgrade of the football stadium sound system and a multi-million-dollar network operating system that may soon be rendered obsolete by cloud computing and other new technologies. It's important to note that for emergency needs, Eanes has $29 million in reserves that could be used and subsequently replenished from a future bond. Eanes ISD has spent the last year focused on the bond issue when they should have been focused on the budget deficit. Now their deficit reduction plan protects bureaucrats and places the burden of reduction on the backs of teachers and taxpayers to bail them out. We disagree. We believe that voters want their tax dollars spent wisely on teachers and academics, not bureaucracy and buildings. In summary, the Eanes resident student enrollment is declining, but the bureaucracy is growing. The bond includes unnecessary luxury items and new facilities that make our deficit problem worse. Eanes is accelerating its debt and deficit spending, which inevitably lead to higher tax bills and deeper cuts in academic programs. Any future bond should be based on basic needs, not luxuries and buildings. Finally, Eanes taxpayers have supported the district with over $100 million in new bonds and taxes in the last 8 years for a district that isn't growing. Now it's time for the district to take action, cut its bureaucracy, not teachers, before asking taxpayers for more money. For district patrons, it's their vote, it's their money. We recommend voters protect our schools, our teachers, and our kids by voting no on this bond. Thank you very much, and Clint will be glad to answer any questions you might have.